Hey everybody, and welcome back to another book review. So I finished Medusa. I found this book when I was doing the Indianapolis book crawl. So really awesome experience to do the book crawl. Didn't hit as many bookstores, but I hit plenty. I don't know if any other cities do a book crawl, but it's a lot of fun just to go from booth to booth or bookshop to bookshop and shop for books. And also, it is predominantly all the bookshops in Indianapolis, but it gives a chance for bookshops that are minority owned to be celebrated and explored by people that typically wouldn't explore them. So that was a lot of fun. But yeah, I ran across this book called I, Medusa, which I feel like I had heard about when I was doing readings of other Greek tragedy stories. And so I, Medusa is by Ayana Gray. And it is just another retelling of the Medusa story. So in most Greek mythology, Medusa is definitely depicted as a villain. She and her sisters have been cursed by Athena, and their curse is that they are no longer beautiful, that they considered themselves too vain, and so they become basically ugly via snakes for hair, and their looks, or if you look into their eyes, you would turn into stone. That is the most common generalized story. There's a lot of different kind of angles that the Medusa story has taken. There's a lot of bits of the origins that are a little different, depending on which version you read from which person from back in the day. But in general, the theory is that Medusa was raised by two sea gods who are lesser gods than like Poseidon. And she and her sisters are a little bit different because her sisters are immortal and she is not. And so in our story, in I'm Medusa, in this particular version, Medusa always just kind of sees herself as the oddball out. She doesn't see herself as very pretty. And of course, she sees herself as trapped. Her mother's an alcoholic. Her father is just worried about his kingdom, wanting to stay in good graces with Poseidon. And they host a lot of lavish banquets, which is where Medusa first sees Poseidon, but doesn't really meet him. And she is given the opportunity, of course, to go serve as a priestess in the temple of Athena in Athens. And she takes that chance because she's always wanted to get off the island. And so she goes and she begins her priestess training, and things seem to be going well. She passes all of her tests and everything seems fine. But she, in this process of being in Athens, meets this boy, and he's kind of been like following her sort of, but like not, and she's just not really sure how he keeps showing up when she really needs him. The first time it's because she and her friends lose an owl that is very important to the temple. And so they're hunting for this owl, and this boy pops up and is able to help them find it. There's another time where she gets lost in the city of Athens, and he pops up and is able to show her back to the main streets. So it just kind of keeps happening. And then what she discovers is that this boy is actually Poseidon in disguise. And that Poseidon has been watching her because she is part of his sea court, and he's like, oh, I'm just, watching you to take care of you. And it's obviously not that. As you're reading it, you're like, that's not what he's doing, friend, but okay. And so Medusa is kind of falling for his charms a little bit and just like, oh, we're just friends, until they're not friends anymore. And they're kissing and whatnot. And so she's given the opportunity to return back to her parents' home for a feast. And in this time, actually, no, before that, she has met a friend at the temple, and they're both on their way to becoming priestesses. and they get separated during Panthenia, which is like a big festival time in Athens. And during that time, her friend is raped. And so her friend is like asking for help, and Medusa is like, oh, I can help you, takes her to the baths or whatever. But there's this other girl who's also trying to be a priestess, who is like, no, I'm going to go tell the high priestess that, you are out sleeping with men, which is breaking your vows and all this stuff. And so this young girl is kicked out of the temple because she has broken her vows of chastity. And Medusa's like, this is kind of unfair because, like, according to her friend, she got lost, she was drunk, and these men took advantage of her. But according to the high priestess and Athena, no, you just put yourself in that position, so you clearly were asking for it. And it comes up again when Medusa leaves to go visit her family for a or a feast, I'm sorry, where all of the Olympians have been invited, and obviously Poseidon will be there. And so Medusa has already told Poseidon no once, like they were making out on the beach, and he was like, oh, it's time for us to, do the deed. And she's like, no, thanks. Like, that's not what I want. That's not what I want to do. And so when this feast happens, Poseidon shows up, and he waits until Medusa is fairly well drunk, and then he more or less takes advantage. And so Medusa is caught by Athena, and Athena is like, what are you doing? And Athena is both mad at Poseidon and at Medusa. So it's not, the story isn't just like Athena got mad at Medusa and Medusa gets cursed. No. Athena is mad at Poseidon for putting Medusa in the position that she would have to choose this. That's kind of the way Athena is seeing it. And so Athena drags Medusa back into the banquet hall and like basically humiliates her and everything. And basically what it boils down to is Zeus, asks several questions because they're asking for Zeus to figure it out. And Zeus is like, okay, did you put yourself in this position? Yes. Okay, did you want to be in this position? No. But did you actually say the words no? And Medusa's like, no, I said, wait. I said, I want to wait for a second. And then Poseidon didn't stop, but she never actually said no. So Zeus is like, oh, so then there's nothing to be said. You wanted it. And so from there, Medusa is cursed. And in this story, Medusa is depicted as of color with locks. She and her sisters all have locks. And they talk a lot about their hair and how they take care of it and what they're doing to their locks to maintain them. And so when their hair turns into snakes, it's not just a, oh, her hair turned into snakes. No, it's like very like painful for her because all of her locks fall off and she's replaced with snakes. Which I just think is a really interesting way. And I also kind of like overall, the way that the story is told is kind of a little bit of like from the angle of colonization a little bit, which I really like from a historian perspective, because we don't talk about how in the ancient world it was actually very diverse. Like we think of Greece as just Greek, or we think of Rome as just Roman. We don't talk about the fact that these are both huge empires that spanned multiple continents. And so people would not have just only been looking at white Europeans. They would have been looking at people from Asia, minor and major, people from Africa. They would have seen those things. And in Greek mythology, you hear a lot about like all these other like random islands in different places, and they're actually really close to Africa. Like it's closer than you think. And so in this story, they kind of really highlight the fact that there were older gods. There were, of course, the Titans, right? And then there were the older gods, which were like the immediate children of some of the Titans. And those gods are more diverse and they're more spread out. And so Medusa's family is black, and predominantly everybody that's around them is of color. The Olympians are depicted as white, which I thought was very interesting. And Medusa talks a lot about it in the story of, like this is like when I look at Athena, she's this beautiful red-headed, like woman, and I just don't feel adequate next to her because I'm dark skinned, right? And I think that's just like a really interesting way to kind of add bits and pieces to the story. And then, of course, they also talk about how diverse Athens was because it's a port city. You would have people from everywhere coming in and out of Athens, which is true. Like going in and out of a lot of these major port cities, you would see people from all over the world interact with people that are speaking different languages than just Greek, even though Greek was a fairly universal language, depending on time period. So yeah, I really liked that element of the story. So anyway, story goes on. Medusa and her sisters are cursed, right? The difference in a lot of this is that the end of the story is that Medusa and her sisters wind up going back to their family's island to live out the remainder of their curse. And all these ships keep showing up on the islands, and her sisters start reveling in the fact that they can just kill men because they've been spurned by men and they're tired of men just taking over everything. So they're just like killing men for the sport of it. And Medusa doesn't really feel that way. She's like, I don't just want to keep killing men because one man hurt me. And she also, like in her first killing, when she first gets cursed, she kills her best friend who is male. And she's like really distraught about that. So she doesn't find joy like her sisters do. And so in the end, Medusa is, of course, killed by Perseus. It's not really talked about so much, but the only reason that she is killed by Perseus is because she was trying to avenge a young girl that she had met on her travels by killing the priest that had supposedly taken advantage of this young girl. And she does so, turning him to stone, but she is caught in that process of, like, people see her and, they see this monster. And so she's being, stalked and whatever. And that's when Perseus comes in. And the story doesn't dwell on Perseus. It's like 3 pages of her death, but like her sisters are just so distraught because Medusa is the one that is not immortal. So she is able to be killed. And so I like the way that the story kind of wraps up and how her sisters feel about it. And it makes the rest of their existence and the continued killings that they do more not just about, killing men that just want to take over, but also like avenging their sister's death because her life was taken. And so, yeah, it's a very interesting story. I give it a 4 out of 5. I like a good retelling. I really do. I just felt like this one fell just a little bit short. But I really like the focus on, and the author talks about this in her epilogue of, like, it's not just about the story of Medusa, right? It's also about rape culture and grooming. And that's what the whole story is. It's not just like Poseidon and Medusa, fall into bed together and they were kind of in love. It's not just that. And you can just see it the whole time that, like, she is being groomed for this moment. And there's also, some things that I struggled with, such as the fact that, like, Medusa is portrayed as so innocent when she's 17. It's not to say that, like, I knew everything at 17, because I didn't, but I feel like there were some things that most 17-year-olds would have known, even by, like, ancient world standards. And so it just kind of surprised me that the author left her as so innocent of not knowing what sex was, not understanding, what anything that she was experiencing was. It was just kind of weird. And then, like, also I felt like there was this just, like, last minute addition with her friend from the temple, Apocria is her name. I don't think I ever actually said her name, but she and Medusa wind up becoming lovers towards the end of the story. But it is so fast, and it was just kind of like thrown in there at the last minute. And even though you do feel this like kindred friendship between them, it did not make sense. It was just kind of like a last minute, like, oh, and by the way, she actually is gay. So like I didn't love that, not because of the gay storyline. I just didn't love the way that it was done, because I think it could have been done so much better. Um, so yeah, overall, I give it a 4. Don't anticipate it like becoming a TV show or anything. I just don't think that there's enough to work with. And while I did enjoy it, I just don't feel like it was a strong enough book to make it a 5. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, long book review, but there you have it. You know, like I said before, some of the other books, I'm a big Greek fan. I love Greek mythology. So when I saw like this book, I was like, ooh, another Greek retelling. Love that. So, you know, I scooped it up right away. But yeah, it just kind of fell just a little short for me, but not bad overall. So there you have it. As always, like, comment, share, subscribe if you so choose. Thank you all for being here, watching, even though it's been a much slower year. Had a lot of medical concerns and things like that happening, so that's why videos have been so much slower than normal. But I am okay. Everybody's okay. But it's just taking a little longer to get videos out, so I do apologize for that. But I'm still enjoying having you all here and following along. And yeah, so I will see you in the next book review. Bye!